So covering what's new from Shimano is always a challenge because there's always so much new from Shimano. So we are going to take you through the ICAST 21 Shimano booth tour with Jack Sprengel. The first one I'm really excited about because the inshore tuna bite within 15 to 20 miles, depending on where you are throughout the region, has taken off. And for most folks who are used to inshore fishing, the idea of getting into tuna fishing is kind of this, oh my God, I'm going to have to spend $10,000, I'm never going to get there. Jack, that's just not the case anymore.
No longer.
You don't have to spend a lot of money, you still get some really good gear.
One of the biggest reasons I've always been a big fan of the Shimano equipment is every time Shimano's top shelf product gets an upgrade, everything down the line gets the upgrade without a cost change. Wow. It's really remarkable. And that's never been more evident with the first reel we're going to go over today, the new introduction of the Spheros. New Spheros has been given a couple of features that have now made this reel capable of landing much larger game fish. Even down here in as small as the 5,000 size, you can land game fish because it's going to go up to 24 pounds of drag. And when you can match this up with some of the lighter weight combos that are there, you now have a reel that's in about $120 range, give or take, depending on your size, price point, that's capable of landing these smaller school tunas that are running around off your coast right now. And one of the other exciting things they've done now is they've filled in the series and they've added both a 14,000 and an 18,000 size. So now there's a much closer bridge between that and the top size of the 20,000, which have drag systems rated up as high as 24 pounds of drag.
That's awesome.
In addition to that, they've added infinity drive to this reel. Infinity drive is something you and I discussed at the last ICAST we were together. It's a system that allows the spool shaft to move independently throughout the pinion gear. And what that does is it makes so that no contact between the two under heavy torque or load. What does that mean for us on the water? When you're fighting a fish and all of a sudden you just can't turn the handle, it's because that spool shaft is laying against the pinion gear. By eliminating that, you never lose the ability to turn the handle on the reel, either under heavy load. So that's going to increase your winding power by up to 30%.
Outstanding to do that on spin gear with tuna. We're going to match that to a recommended rod in a minute or two.
Absolutely.
But let's move down the line and tell me more about the Shimano reels.
Let's go.
Next up on the Shimano tour is the Shimano Sustain. Jack, what are we looking at here?
Sustain has got an entirely new upgrade. It was already a great reel before, but one of the biggest things we're going to notice is some of the features they've added to this reel have made it significantly lighter than its predecessor, which was already a fan favorite. It's much smoother, and it has, in addition to some of the sharper features, a little bit added performance even at the casting level. Here's what they've added to this reel to make it better. The first thing you're going to notice right when you pick up this reel is how responsive the rotor is and how light the reel is overall. That's because they've integrated the very popular MGL light rotor system to this reel. What does that mean for us on the water? I always like to answer that. That means faster hook sets, very quick response on that reel, and it's going to give you much more control over working an aggressive lure like a jig, a fast metal for some funny fish, or just working something like a jerkbait.
Gotcha.
The other thing you're going to notice is that really sharp looking matte finish on a long stroke spool. The long stroke spool lays that line on there much evenly, and it's wider, and it's going to increase your casting distance significantly. You will notice it your very first cast with this reel. Then the last really big feature about this thing is you're going to notice is it now has an Hagane gear. So it's got an aluminum body, it's got an aluminum Hagane cold forged gear that now integrates micro module 2 gearing. Micro module 2 gearing, what is that? It's significantly more number teeth on the gear. Shimano already makes perfect gears, so there's zero tolerance differences. But by having more points of contact on that reel, you literally do not feel any of the gearing when you turn it. It almost feels like it's running on liquid inside this reel. So now you've got the new Sustains going up to about the 5,000 size, and it's going to give you a lighter weight reel overall, higher performance, a lot more bang for your buck, better casting. It's just a really exciting upgrade to an already favorite reel in the lineup.
When is this one going to be out, the Sustain?
It's coming out this fall. Whether or not there are going to be numbers of them in the shop, the way things come out, will be, it'll remain on the future of shipping in the company.
We mentioned the Spheros before. Is that one the same thing? We're looking at all of these releases sometime in the fall?
These are all released this year, yep, but they're going to just be a matter of when they can come in.
Of course, that's what we're up to. Want to look at one more reel?
Let's look at one more. Let's go to the heavy hitter.
You got it. Continuing along with the new 2021 releases from Shimano, we're going to move on to the big stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Now we're getting into the flagship stuff. Now you're chasing the bigger tuna. So within the bigger tuna lineup, most people are looking at Saragosas, you're looking at Twin Powers, and then the top shelf, you're looking at Stella.
When we're talking bigger tuna, we're going with bigger bluefin, we're going offshore jigging for yellowfin.
Because we all know now, right, you guys don't even have to run far off New Jersey to get into 80-pound class yellowfin now. I mean, it's a really exciting fishery there, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes, even more to come with you guys. So,
gotcha.
I mean, we all know you can jig the small fish, but you've got giants there too. So, on the subject of the bigger fish, and you need a little bit more performance, Shimano did a really exciting thing with Twin Power SW. Twin Power SW has now incorporated all of the pre-existing features that the original Stellas had in a much more affordable price point in the $600 range, as opposed to spending top shelf with the Stella. And you're probably going to see more of these reels in your area than any other, I think, for the more aggressive, more in tune jigging casting anglers. What they've added to this reel, specifically in the 10,000 size and higher, is infinity drive, which we've discussed before, but again, infinity drive means you've got 30% more torque overall. All of that energy in that reel is transferred to cranking power, and it's going to be easy to turn while under a load. But one of the more exciting things that they've added to this reel that came from the Stella, because Shimano just translates it right down the line as it goes, is the addition of Heatsink. So now, when you're catching large fish, even if you don't realize what's going on at the bottom of your spool, you're heating up the inner core of that reel significantly. This is going to reduce the inner temperature of that reel by as much as 50% by shunting that heat away from the inner diameter of that spool, and it's going to reduce any damage happening to the lower level of your line. So you do get that giant accidentally jigging the small fish. You get down to the bottom of the spool, you have no compromised line integrity whatsoever.
That's awesome.
Exciting new feature for a reel that's going to come in about $300 less than a reel that performed almost identical to it, just a few less features than you would get in the Stella.
Amazing to think about when Stella first came out and the prices were so high. Like you said, we continue to improve, yet continue to ratchet that price down.
Even Stella, Shimano found a way to make Stella for less money, and instead of leaving the price the same, they dropped it.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's a company that cares about fishing.
That's great. Now what I want to do is I want to match these reels up to a rod of choice so we can get out there and get on it.
Let's show them the most affordable combo that's going to be available on the market to get into that offshore, close to shore Jersey jigging game.
That's perfect. So Jack fishes New England. Jack Sprengel's been with the Fisherman magazine for a number of years, so you've read his stuff. So all the way between New England down into the mid-Atlantic coast, there are some great rods that you can pick up to get in on the bluefin and yellowfin fishery, not far from home, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. We're talking like from $100 to $300 what you're going to show me.
Right. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the tackle shops up in Rhode Island, and my career has taken me right through Maine all the way down to New Jersey, and just about everywhere we have these exciting new jig bites happening on this very healthy offshore bite with small bluefin and yellowfins, no matter where you are. And a lot of anglers want to get into it without having to refinance their house to get the gear, you know.
Right.
And we can access these fish with smaller boats, so by all means, you're going to titrate that gear to the fishery. And one of the coolest things that Shimano came out with this year, in addition to, we talked about the upgrade of the ability of the Spheros reel and the price being in that $120 price range. Now they've come out with a rod that's designed just for that same price point, but with that same type of action. So here we have the new Talavera J Jigging Series rods. The Talavera J Jigging Series rods are going to come in retail just over $100. So now you can combo one of these up with a Spheros or with a Torium type reel if you're a conventional angler, and be under $300 and have a jigging setup that's going to allow you to learn this fishery without having to go all in financially.
That's awesome.
It's got a basic graphite blank, and then it has the C Series guides on them. They're going to have a little more corrosion resistance, and they're also tangle-free guides on them. And all of the layouts on these, you've got 4 with spin, you've got 4 with conventional, and then you have 3 actually in the slow pitch design as well. So there's 11 rods total in the lineup, all coming in just underneath or just over $100, and they're going to allow you to do everything from jigging, slow pitch jigging, conventional or spin.
And as we move up, this is the Talavera. We move up the food chain, so to speak. What do we look at next?
So when you get a little bit more popular, I mean, this is probably a staple up anywhere in fishing in the Northeast, no matter where you are. Terramar series rods. It's been a staple of my guide service for a long time. We relied on them heavily. I didn't know what they could do to make them much better. Cosmetically, they've made them absolutely stunning with this graphite look to them. But what they've done is it's a TC4 material blank. Very powerful composite, very lightweight. Only they found that there's absolutely zero issue with any kind of integrity of this blank by leaving it as it is raw. So now you have a raw TC4 blank. You don't have this clear coating going all the way down the length of the rod. And Jim, if you feel this rod, it's significantly lighter than the original Terramar series rods.
Amazing.
Also has the C-frame guides on there as well.
And I just used the Terramar recently on bluefin. We were doing some jigging, so but this is so light. This is brand new.
Absolutely, and almost all of them now, almost every one of them in the lineup now feature that nice rubber gimbal in there. So when you put them in the rod holder, when you put them up on the T-top, they're staying in place. They're not swinging around. It's excellent. They really did a good job taking a rod that didn't need much and just making it better.
Tweaking a little bit.
Right.
And these are all available. Same thing we were talking about.
Same
with
thing.
reels.
Everything's coming out now, but it's just a matter of as distribution gets available to the stores, you're going to start seeing them pop up in shops, especially your bigger Shimano dealers in the region.
See a nice little cork grip on the Terramar.
Yeah. So Terramar got taken to a whole new level. We introduced it at the earlier part of the year. You're just starting to see them get into shops now, but they've been out. But you know, this rod goes about $200, a little over $200.
Gotcha.
Now you're going top shelf. So they've taken Terramar and they've integrated the High Power X Spiral X construction. That's the same type of construction that they're using in the top shelf bluefin popping rods, the Grappler series jigging rods, the Game Type J jigging rods. It's basically a series of carbon fiber tape that is woven in a crisscross pattern on the outside of the rod and a spiral on the inside of the rod. And it creates a rod that has absolutely zero flex or torsion, fast recovery, and almost zero ovalization under heavy load. So you don't get that catastrophic failure you would get with a traditional blast blank.
Gotcha.
But it does it without thickening the inner diameter of the wall. So the rod is just ridiculously light, especially with the cork grips that are on here. These all feature Fuji guides, a Fuji reel seat, cork grips.
It's amazing.
And when you fish these rods, the first time I got a chance to fish a Terramar XX, Blaine Anderson and I were fishing the Connecticut River. We were just kind of bouncing Rhode Island off Connecticut with throwing topwater plugs to bass. And I just couldn't shut up about fishing with the rod. He called me, I just sounded like a schoolgirl. He said, it was just, when you fish one, you'll understand why the rod is what it is. It's the flagship. It's one of the neatest designs I've seen.
This fall of 2021, you got to stop in your local tackle shop and at least just pick this up, because you're going to question whether what he's talking about is true. You can catch such big game on this. It's feather light, but you really got to check it out.
Absolutely.
I think there's one last line that we're going to look at.
We got a big one.
We're going to go top shelf right now. Let's go over to the other side of Shimano and check one more thing out for you. And one really cool thing about Shimano is they've kind of grabbed some of the very best fishermen in each of the regions to bring on staff, so they kind of tailor things to what those guys are doing, which is pretty much what Jack has done in our region. So the one thing about matching the Stellas, for example, the rods, a lot of guys, I guess, did custom rods in the past.
Right. If you were buying a top shelf reel, especially guys outfitting a whole boat, and you were getting into the tuna game, if you were buying Talicas, if you were buying Beastmaster for daytime sorting, if you were buying even Tiagras, you had to go custom, and you had to do this long wait after you bought the reels to have a custom rod maker make you 4 rods that were capable of doing what you wanted to do. And what Shimano did is, first they took the Torres series rods and they added High Power X Spiral X to them. So that's the same tech that made these super high-end jigging rods lightweight with all the power. Now you've got that in an offshore boat rod. But they've gone further and they've taken the custom market and using all the same components, heavy-duty Winthrop guides. You can wind on your swivels now. The top shelf AFCO guides, Fuji guides, all the top guides that a custom rod would have are now here in a factory rod that you can buy to keep your entire Shimano system the same. To bump it up one level further, they've gone and made technique-specific rods, and that's where they've used guys like myself. So now we have a daytime sword rod specifically made for daytime sorting in a heavy and a lighter action. We have a high-speed trolling rod, we have a slow-speed trolling rod, and we have bottom fishing rods. And then we have the most popular and consistent setups for 50 class, 30 class, and even 130 class Cape Cod style giant tuna rods, all made just for those reels, technique specific. It's really remarkable what they've done.
That's awesome. So, I mean, just to summarize this thing, going through the whole Shimano thing, as you're getting involved in, let's say, starting into tuna jigging, you can start with a Spheros, get yourself on board for a couple $100, and as you become addicted, like so many of the hardcore afflicted have been, you move up, start customizing your game. Again, same thing, this is all coming out in...
This is all at least this year, and it's just going to trickle into shops throughout the fall and as it comes forward here. As they can get them.
And I look forward to seeing you next year, what we're going to see for 2022.
Likewise, always excited to see you guys at the Fisherman.
You too, Cap. Thanks.
Thank you.